So, funny story. Originally, I was going to call the Cedars Dead Man's Lake. And the reason I was going to call it Dead Man's Lake was because I had heard the story that somebody drowned and died in one of those lakes. Of course, the city tells me, we can't call it that because we don't want to upset the family of whoever that person was. Interestingly enough, though, I kind of looked it up and it seemed like it was kind of unresolved case. And for me, it was just a funny name to call it that. But yeah, in case you wondered, it was almost called Dead Man's Lake. If you see some of the old reviews on the course, or not the reviews, but the hole-by-hole designs. I think I made a mistake a couple times early on because I had kind of gotten used to calling it Dead Man's Lake before I was asked to not to not call it that. So that's pretty funny. So if you want to talk about some math, give you some statistics, starting with the amount of time. It probably took close to 2 years from the first time I was approached to put in a design for the Cedars until, pins and pads were in and we're playing our first round. And don't get me wrong, that's not surprising. It takes a long time to make it through government channels, Parks and Rec departments, members on the board. There's a lot of people to convince. There's a lot of people to show that you are passionate about your project. I think that's kind of what won us in the end. But yeah, it was probably at least 2 years. On the other side of things, the actual design process, I think I added it up one day and it was somewhere around 120 hours of design. The reason it's 120 hours of design is not because I'm a bad designer, at least I don't think I am. It takes that kind of time because, I can walk a piece of property and I could come up with a design pretty quick. I see the lines I like to see and the flow is very important to me. But when you start putting it on, a program, and you start moving things around, and you start to see how close you are with a basket versus the next tee. You start making adjustments, and after you've made 8 or 9 adjustments, you really have to go through the course again. And so a lot of your time really is taking the last 5, maybe 4 or 5 holes that you redesigned, and then going out and throwing again. And with me, it's really important that I'm not the only one doing that. I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of friends that are pros, intermediate players, really good women players. I wouldn't say juniors. I don't really know anybody that's young enough that I would say a junior. But the point is, I like to make sure that all those people come out with me or some collection of that, because I can only imagine. And I do a pretty good job of it, believe it or not. I'm a left-hander. I can pretty much kind of gauge how a right-handed line is going to be approached for the safe line, the risk-reward line, just from watching golf for so many years. But it is pretty important to get that package deal like that. And that's really what takes the amount of time, is that I'm kind of done to this point, and then we go back to the course. And then I go back, and then I make adjustments, and then make more and more and more, back to the course. And that's really what takes the longest. That 120 hours of design is nothing compared to how much time is on the course. I think we calculated around 1,600 throws just for the first design. That's how many people I brought with me, how many shots we're throwing. Because we're going to the course and we're throwing, a dozen discs off of every single tee pad. And maybe on a par 4 or par 5, it's how many more from the next shot. Luckily for me, I have a lot of people that are interested in following me and my my crazy ideas of design, and I feel like I accomplished it. I got a lot of good compliments. It has a great rating, and I'm pretty happy behind it. But yeah, those are some numbers that stick around in my head for sure. So yeah, the corkscrew. So this was the inception of my new corkscrew installation design. I had the idea for a pretty long time. We did a very, very cheap version of it on a different course that I used to do a lot of work on, and I was never happy with it. But I was never in charge, so I let it ride. But as soon as I was in charge, it was really important to me that when temporary baskets go in the ground, they need to stay level, and they need to stay on the ground, and they need it to make sure that nobody can push them over and kick them out. And temporary courses don't put a lot of focus on that. And like I said, they're not really temporary if they're there all winter. They're just seasonal. But so this was an opportunity for me to use, an old part of design that I used to do. And so I created this massive corkscrew, and then it had a metal plate on top of it. And then in all four corners had self-levelers, so that because I had learned from the past that you could put them in the ground when it was, I don't know, we'll say it was 36 degrees, when it was just starting to get a little crunchy. And then when the temperature would raise and go back down a few times, you'd come back and they'd be tipping. And like I said, at a previous course, we just kept, shoving shims under it. Well, if there isn't anybody to do that, then basically you have a bad review because people are going around and 9 of the baskets are all wonky. And that has happened, but not on this course. So yeah, that was the first time we used this design. So I designed it, and then I pretty much just took all the parts and brought it to a welding company. They welded it, fully galvanized the entire piece, and then I had that sent, because I'm in North Carolina, I had that sent back to Minnesota to the maintenance shop, and then we ordered all the parts, and they built 18 more of them. And they're fantastic because one guy, it's just two people to do it. It takes them, I don't know, I'm going to say it might take them just one complete day. And they just go around with the Bobcat that has that like auger bit on it. They've built a little jig that goes right to those pins, or right to those pin sleeves. And one guy holds a level on it, and he cranks it in the ground. And they actually don't even use the self-levelers. They just make it go in far enough that the metal plate just gets underneath. It gets underneath the lawn as well, and then it just has nowhere to go. So yeah, it was kind of a cool deal to, have that not quite patented idea of mine. But yeah, it's cool to, nobody probably even notices that. They're happy that there's just really good baskets on that course, and I'm sure they're really happy that they're level. But beneath all that is it was actually a lot of time, energy, and design to build something that would come out of the ground in spring really easily and go in just right close to the frost mark in the winter. But yeah, that was a big deal. I'm pretty proud of that for sure. So yeah, so another one of those pretty interesting things about the original design on the course. It's only had two. We made some changes on the second course, basically because the crew that takes care of the ball golf course was asking us to redesign it to have minimal damage on it so that it was always in good shape for the summer, which I totally agreed on. It was honestly, it was an opportunity to do it a little bit better anyway. But the first design was designed how I played golf, ball golf, which I played for 20 some years before I ever picked up a disc. And the way that ball golf works is after 9 holes, you get back to the clubhouse. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's an opportunity to use the venue. It's an opportunity to take a break before you go out and do your other 9 holes. And it's a time to relieve a little bit of the crowding on the course if you decide to stay there for a while before you go back out. So I always appreciated that in that sport. And I thought it was pretty important to do the same thing at this venue, especially since we're telling these people that if they keep their venue open through the entire winter, which they never had anybody there, or very small groups, that was going to be important. That if we had a venue and there was good food and good service, then they were going to see a lot of disc golfers. And fortunately for me, that turned out. That really did happen, and it continues to happen there. And obviously, I'm far from the one that made that happen. It was my idea, or I shouldn't say my idea. It was a point that I pushed very hard when it came to putting this disc golf course in. But yeah, turned out really well for us. So the tee design. So yeah, this was the first time that I, again, lucky enough to have a friend that is in the business, a graphic artist. It was the first time that I called somebody and asked for good design with the tee signs. And kind of originally when I thought, I had done tee signs before. I know I'm fluent enough in Illustrator and Photoshop to be able to do those things, and I had ideas in my mind, and of course I went over a lot of tee signs that I had seen everywhere else. That is just not the same as somebody that just like spatially understands how things are supposed to look at, because that's what they do. My design ideas don't fit that box. But yes, we brought in Carter Green, and he just knocked it out of the park. And then when we had to redesign it, he knocked it out of the park again, which is good because he did it pretty much as a favor the first time, and because he did such a great job, I made sure that he got paid to do it the second time, because I felt it was important for the city to understand that we were all professionals doing work on this course, even though it is a temporary course. Sorry, it's my Drew Gibson, temporary course. But I'm not sure how to describe why it is that I really love his artwork. I think it is that it was minimal, but it had all the information that I needed, and it was almost, I don't want to say it to be mean because it's not mean whatsoever, but it was almost a little cartoon-like. Not like a kid drew it, not by any means. It had great texture, and the shadows were where they needed to be, and you understood by looking at that map, you understood the trees that you were going to get there, and he had all the hash marks for the footage, from where you were to the hole. There was a lot of great information on it, but I think that kind of combination of being minimal and like serious, but not so serious with all the elevation markings. Just seeing these other T signs out there was just so much. I just feel like I'm looking at an engineering drawing. And I'm not going to pay attention to that when I go to throw. There's very little information I need, but definitely his signs added incredible value to that course, and you'll see that in the reviews as well. I thought it was very important to let the city know how important I thought it was to make sure that we had great signage, as well as a few other things. Bathrooms, I got a porta potty out there. Other courses don't even have that, that have been around for a long time. It's just the things that make people come back. Especially when you're playing in the middle of winter and you are, a quarter mile away from the venue. Anyway, don't want to end his glory on a toilet talk, but definitely Carter definitely, he definitely put in the work, and he deserves this logo right here, right there, Carter Green. Call that guy. He's awesome. So, yeah, my idea of design, well, it's it's important that it is an experience the whole time. And what I mean is, sure, it's fantastic if all 18 holes, if you take the hole itself, and they're fantastic. I've been to many, many courses that are like that. But they're not the same as a course where there's at least one hole where you want to just empty your bag. Like I want to see what got me into the game in the same thing that I design. And that is, I want to see somebody throw a disc the way they wanted to throw it and shape a shot to get from maybe just the landing zone if it's a par 4, par 5. Maybe it's just within the circle because that's the best that you can even do on a particular hole, because maybe it's just a really, really hard birdie to get. I think that it's more important for me. I mean, you're given the piece of property you're given when it comes to design. What you do with it depends on the way you see disc golf. And I don't see disc golf as the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I love watching that. There's no doubt about it. I'm just as caught up in that media as people that are seriously into the game. But that's not how I see courses to play. Those courses are created for superhuman abilities. And of course we love to see that. We love to see that in all of our sports. But the courses that you play every day, the courses that you play your leagues on, the courses that you play your local tournaments on, if you're going to be playing them all the time, then they need to be courses that get you motivated to keep going back. I always say, like, the first 10 times you play a course is probably the best 10 times you're ever going to play on that course, because as soon as you play it every single day over and over and over, you kind of go on autopilot if you've been playing for as long as I have. So when I designed this course the very first time, to be honest, I was a little afraid. Everybody's afraid of failure, period. I wasn't really afraid of failure. I had done a lot of designs before. And design is what I've done in every field that I've been in my career. So I'm super confident in what I design. But what I was afraid of is that I was going to make it a course that was too hard for the people. And what I mean by that is, because it's winter disc golf, it's already a struggle to do everything a little bit. Your footing's not the same. You're hoping that tee pads have been shoveled. You're doing a lot of standstill shots, so a lot of it's on your core instead of your run-up. And so my very first thought when I was putting the first design together was, I just can't make it too long. If I make it too long, then people will get frustrated. They'll come out here and they'll be, halfway across the course, which is, a 25-minute walk back, and all of a sudden it drops to, 6 degrees and you're really cold, and now you have to hike your way back because you just want to get off the course because it's just taking too long. So that was definitely my worry. And so with the first design, I put a lot of focus into just kind of averaging across the board. I feel like maybe I averaged all the holes around. But just taking across the board, just take all 18 holes. Of course, there's some 440s and stuff like that on the first design. If you average them across the board, I feel it was more like right around 315 or 320. And that's just because I golfed there for 18 years, and I know how much distance you lose in the wintertime, especially when you just can't get, you can't get any core behind some of those shots. And to be honest, it was a huge mistake on my part. Now, I was very fortunate, and everybody in the Twin Cities, or everybody that had anything to say about that course, had nothing but great things to say about it. And I was a little worried because I remember when the course first opened, and all of a sudden, the players that I know pretty well are shooting double digits. And I'm like, well, I kind of failed there. I mean, I made the course too easy. I don't want this to go down as being a really easy course. Again, I lucked out because they asked for a redesign for different purposes. And so that's why we have the design now. And definitely nobody is making a regular habit of shooting double digits. Now, if the course opens and there's miraculously no snow for the first month and it just sits right around, 30 degrees, then yeah, somebody's going to start crushing it because you can throw rollers and you can have some pretty good shots. But anyway, I mean, the whole point of the design for me was that it needed to work for everybody. I don't, the value of building a course that only fits the top 10% in the area that you're in. I'm not building a winter course for the players that are over 1,000 rated in that particular city, being Minneapolis. I would love to do that. That would be great. But it doesn't satisfy enough people. And to be quite honest, I've talked to a lot of pros and over a long time of being around, and I never really get that huge impression that pretty much their idea is that they're there to make you, not to make you look bad, but I remember I got a comment a long time ago on a different course that I did, and he was also a friend of mine. He was a pro, and he had said to me, we're going to just destroy this course. But that's what we're supposed to do. We're professionals. We're supposed to do that, and I agreed. And that's why I didn't build this particular one for professionals. I also didn't build another course on the property where I had more room because I thought about just having two, and I'd have one that was a smaller course that was a little bit more friendlier for families and so on. But actually, I didn't do that because they had some ski trails on the upper part, and I'm all about mixed use of any entire piece of property, and so if they want to keep that up there for ski trails, then then let it be. It's certainly not something I'm going to attack until somebody says, hey, it doesn't look like we're getting a lot of people skiing anymore. Maybe we should be up here, and then of course I'll jump all over it. But yeah, a lot of the design on that particular course, like I said, my first issue was making it too hard. And really what I mean by too hard is too long. I think that, especially the golf in that particular part of the country, there's just a lot of very highly rated disc golfers. And so I was just worried that I would make it so long that most of the AM players just wouldn't want to play it. And I don't want that, because the AM players are the ones that will spend the time, and they'll spend the money in the venue, and like they'll do the things that need to be done to make golf move on. I'm not trying to sell Disc Golf Pro Tour tickets up there. So, and I take that from ball golf. I take a lot of my design from ball golf. Quite honestly, I feel that we need to do a lot more of that. Maybe not like their exact rules or the way they do things, but the ideas that they use for making the design work better. So that was a big thing that you had to be back after 9 holes. I think maybe for some reason this one maybe didn't get back until 10. I can't remember. I think the latest design I couldn't get there right at 9, but that was pretty important. And then what's really important is the satisfaction of people throwing quality throws. I think that's what really makes people come back to a course a lot, when they know that they have to complete really, I'm not going to say complicated throws, but challenging throws. Throws that require them to work hard at it. I remember the old 7 on the original design it had an elevated green in front of you that was about, I don't know, it must have been 80 feet ahead of you. And on the very far left side, it would taper down. And as a lefty, I could just throw it on that tapered line. But as a right-hander, unless you had a really great forehand, it wasn't there. And I specifically put that tee pad and that basket exactly where I put it, because it makes people throw what I think is one of the coolest shots, and it also shows your level of play. Whereas a right-hander, you have to throw this Anheuser with something stable, not overstable, and you just have to throw it, and you have to throw it high enough, and then as soon as it just gets over that tree, it's a stall shot, and it just hits up there and basically just kind of falls down. And that's what I picture when I design holes. Like, I picture the lines. I picture like what you have to do as a player to make that work. And then of course I'm surprised all the time when I take other people out and I think that that's the best shot and they show me something different. Doesn't mean I'll change the hole because they showed me something different. Sometimes they just got a little bit of cheat code on them because they can do something that only a few people can do. But then another thing besides me creating holes that are kind of specific to shots or specific to shots that I think will work the best, another big one is that you have to have a line for the people that are there to score the best, and then you have to have a line not on every single hole. It's almost impossible to do it on all 18, but you have to have a significant number of holes. I'd say it's nice if you could have half the holes where you are providing a real risk-reward shot for the people that can do things in the game that not everybody can do. And if you have some friend of yours that can easily, flex a turnover for 550, you got somebody that really has a lot in the bag, I want to make sure that I can offer that shot for as many times as I can on the course. And the reason for that is because I want to engage the people that have those abilities. If you never give them those abilities, then the only times you see that stuff is probably when you're out on big bomber courses. But if you can do it on a course like this, where it is a smaller course, it's not tiny, it's a smaller course and it has a lot of elevation. And that elevation that ran around or that goes around that property, that's what allowed me to have some of these big shots, like currently 16 at the moment. This is actually why I moved to the tee pad for 17, is because 16 is you're way up on top. You're like in the same area, like behind you is 9 going down the hill, but you're up on the highest part of the property. And you're throwing down across a ball golf fairway, and it probably drops like 50 feet in elevation, and then it has to hook and get into an alleyway of pine trees, and the basket is in there. But if you have the abilities, as a right-hander, you can absolutely just throw the opposite direction and just crush a big Anheuser up way, way high. And if you hold it on that line, you'll actually come in kind of the back door. And again, that's why I moved 17's tee pad. The year previous, that tee pad, when you finished from that basket, you just stepped out and it was maybe 100 feet away. But it was because that was in no danger whatsoever. But when I think about lines like that, then again, here we go. Now we're spending more time doing design. The safety aspect is huge for me. I won't get into the story, but I have been hit in the face by a destroyer, and that person was 100 feet away from me throwing as hard as he can. So I would really prefer that nobody else feels that. But yeah, I think that kind of covers it. And like I said, the flow is a huge thing. But it's more about the experience. I think that when you get off the course, like if you get to 18 and you wish that you were playing more, that's what I want. I don't want, I don't want it to be something specific, or, oh, I like this course because there's a lot of left-handed shots. And if I remember right, I'm pretty sure on this last layout, I think there's hardly any, like just, what you'd call gimme left-hand, backhand lines. But yeah, so obviously the design's super important to me. That's why I'm here.